Welcome to the Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast, a show created to help painting company owners build a thriving painting business that does well over $1 million in annual revenue. I'm your host, Brandon Pierpont, founder of Painter Marketing Pros and creator of the popular PCA educational series Learn, Do, Grow, Marketing for Painters. In each episode, I'll be sharing proven tips, strategies, and processes from leading experts in the industry on how they found success in their painting business. We will be interviewing owners of the most successful painting companies in North America and learning from their experiences. On this episode of the Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast, we host guests Tony Busnardo and Kent Gledhill. Tony and Kent are co-founders and co-owners of Old World Painting, a residential painting company based in Breckenridge, Colorado that does over $2.5 million in annual revenue. In this episode, Tony and Kent discuss their journey as friends and business partners. They share a mindset they perceive to be very harmful that many other painting company owners seem to possess, and how staying away from that mode of thinking has enhanced the happiness in their lives. Determined to be anti-businessmen, the pair elaborate on what finally caused them to implement more systems and processes into their business and the freedom and power that came from doing so. Kent also talks about an amazing nonprofit he runs in Costa Rica, and he provides listeners the opportunity to give their family a life-changing experience by getting involved. If you want to learn more about the topics we discussed in this podcast and how you can use them to grow your painting business, visit paintermarketingpros.com/podcast for free training, as well as the ability to schedule a personalized strategy session for your painting company. Again, that URL is paintermarketingpros.com/podcast. Tony, Kent, thank you both for coming on the Painter Marketing Mastermind podcast.
Thanks for having us. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so Tony, this is round 2 for you here on the podcast. Yours was actually one of our most popular episodes yet. Heard from quite a few people about it at PCA Expo. I heard your name quite a bit, even though you weren't there. I heard a lot about you. But Kent, you were kind of the star. You were the absent star of that podcast episode because you guys founded this company together and friends from school, and wanted to bring you guys back on and really hear your story from both of you.
All right.
Let's whoever kind of wants to kick it off, let's start at the beginning with this thing.
Go ahead. Yeah, I'll pick up on that. So as Tony said, the last time we were college buddies, roommates in college. Tony went all the way through for a master's degree, and I graduated with 2 different bachelor's degrees. And so came out of college kind of ready to take on the world. And I got married shortly after that. And my wife and I ended up traveling through South America. Tony was traveling in a different part of South America. And we're just kind of out exploring, getting ready for the next phase of life. I think both of us thinking at the time we were probably going to put those college degrees to some sort of use. But at the same time, really kind of thinking, how can we do something together? We had formed this friendship through college, and kind of in our minds was, could we work something out where we can both be in the same place, where we can share our lives together. We didn't want to just, you see all these people in college having a great communal experience, learning a lot, being with people, bouncing ideas off of each other, and then coming out of college and just going and getting a job. And it's like, man, we kept thinking there's got to be something more than that, just split off from all these people you had formed a connection with and start on your own. And it was like, how do we kind of continue this vibe of doing stuff in a communal way? And so Melissa, my wife, and I were the first to move to Breckenridge. And the reason we came here was for community. We had some friends that were here. We came back from South America, flat broke, kind of spent all our money backpacking around, and we crashed on a couch for a few weeks. Not a pull-out couch, just a couch. A
couch.
A newly young married couple. It was like, hey, we're crashing on the couch here, and after a few weeks, they got sick of us doing that, and we found a place to live. But the whole idea behind it was, we're gonna live with friends. We're gonna share our lives together with people. It's not about making a bunch of money. It's not about like pursuing a career. Those things are fine, but it's more about like, who do we want to do life together with? Who do we want to be with? And so that was kind of the top priority. And so we settled here, or settled in, and I was emailing back and forth with Tony, who was still in Patagonia at the time, and kind of pressing him like, hey, come to Breckenridge, and we'll figure out what to do. You know, we both know how to paint houses. We'll paint houses, we'll ski, we'll hang out together, and then we'll figure out what to do next. So that was kind of how it started. When Tony showed up, then we started the business. And yeah, any of your listeners know what it's like when you first start that business. You know, it's like job to job, day to day, never knowing if you have a place to go to work the next day.
Kent and Melissa actually had $0 and I got back from Patagonia and I had like $1,001.
You were rich.
I was loaded. I was a thousandaire. And we needed Kent had this old paint sprayer, and the first day we went to use it, it proved to, it gave up the ghost immediately. And so our very first day of work, we went down to the paint shop and I spent $997 on a new paint sprayer. So between the three of us, we had about $4. That was how it began. But I was thinking what Kent was just saying too. It was a shocker for us coming out of college. We had I think people have similar experiences. Ours was a really intense communal experience. And it was a real shocker for us to see people afterwards just go, well, I went to school with an accounting degree. So I applied for some accounting jobs and I can't believe it, but I landed one and off to Cincinnati or, wherever they went, no connections, no nobody, no one, nothing. And that's just where they went. And we wanted to, we wanted to be the masters of our own destiny, and we wanted to put what was important to us first, and the job could come next. So,
man, how cool is that? Talk about living intentionally. I think that's the perception is you go to college, you hear, oh, it's the best time of your life, or, nothing's ever like it. And people just kind of accept. I mean, a lot of people do go to college. A lot of people don't go to college, but you get that refrain. It's the best time of your life. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to end, doesn't have to stop. You don't have to just have that fun. And then, you're 22, you're out of college, your life's going to suck now and forevermore. I mean, that's kind of, people just think, isn't that nuts? It's nuts.
It is nuts. I've actually said many times to people that, they're like, well, what's it like in Breckenridge? I was like, well, we just extended college and we're, 20 some years later, and we just extended the communal reality. I mean, just like, what was it? A couple nights ago, we found out about this silly, open mic night, where it's a comedy open mic night. And it was like, oh, we've never done stand-up comedy. We should go do that. That'll be fun. And this was like, we could, we got some friends together. It was easy to do. We all live close and off we went. So we just kind of extended the college experience in some ways.
I love it. Did you guys actually do the comedy?
Oh yeah, we were amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
Probably shouldn't do that again on the podcast. So.
You got any jokes? Anything you can share?
First time stand-up comics. It was
it was pretty rough, but it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always wondered what that would be like. I have a friend who does that. Seems like a pretty tough gig.
Yeah, that's one of my jokes was about how tough it would be, and I'd never do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Nice. I love it. So you guys, I mean, that was your why. It sounds like your why of this business wasn't really about the business. Your why was doing life with people you want to do life with, and you'll figure it out. And you started the business because that was a skill set you both possessed.
Correct.
Yeah, that's right. I painted, and I had kind of a similar experience in high school. I met Tony in college, but before that, my good buddy from high school and I painted houses together in the summer. And that last summer after high school, we started a little business together, and he kept that going and ended up moving to Utah and running a painting company in Utah for a while. But that was, I'd already kind of done one season. I think we did 2 seasons of, painting with a buddy. And it's like, what better job is there where you're just kind of working next to each other, talking, shooting the breeze, bouncing ideas off of each other, listening to music, climbing up and down ladders. It's like, you want to be doing that with somebody you enjoy being around all day. So
Yeah. Have you guys found that, I think, Tony, this was something I believe we covered a little bit, but that you guys sort of have either a complementary skill set, or maybe it's too overlapping? How has that worked?
I think, Tony talked about that last time. It took us a while to figure that out. It took us a while to figure out, hey, maybe we shouldn't both do all the same tasks. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Again, anybody that listens knows that if you're owning a painting company, there's 8 different things, maybe 80 different things you got to be good at. You have to be good at estimating. You have to be good at painting. You have to be good at dealing with the client, invoicing, scheduling. It's like we would try and for years, just both of us would do every part of it. And it took a few years in before it was like, hey, what if we kind of split this up and, try and figure out. And I don't know that one of us was particularly more gifted at certain parts of it than the other one. One big one was I don't do well with scheduling. And the reason is I hate to let people down. And I have a terrible tendency to kind of overpromise, to tell people, yeah, we'll make that happen. We'll be there.
Be there tomorrow.
Yeah. And I got us into trouble doing that. Got myself into trouble. And,
we'll start the project tomorrow. No problem.
Yeah. Created a bunch of stress. And when there's 2 of us, and we're not communicating all the time, and Tony's telling somebody we're going to be here and I'm telling somebody else we're going to be there. We came to a point where I know I told Tony, I don't want to do this part of the job anymore. It's the worst thing for me. That's where my stress is. And so it's kind of like looking at what stresses me out about this job. And is that something that Tony wants to take on? Thankfully it was,
We also had feedback from people we worked with that said, it can be confusing sometimes. They're like, you guys do great. We'll never hire anybody else, but it could be confusing because we were both doing everything. So people wouldn't necessarily know who to talk to about what.
Right.
So that was like, honestly, that was in the last time we talked, I talked about how we finally started thinking about the business 10 years in or something.
Right.
And that was probably the first thing that kicked in was we should divvy some of this up in ways that make sense and are simpler for everybody, including ourselves. So
Yeah. Now, was that? Oh, go ahead, Kent.
I think we spent a solid 8 to 10 years kind of avoiding the idea of being businessmen, making fun of that whole thing. Like, oh, there's, people in business, like we're just having a good time painting houses,
Yeah.
And so we really avoided that. Like, we don't want to be the man. We don't want to be, these business people. We're just cool guys painting houses. And so that's probably part of the reason it took us so long to kind of dial that in, is we actively avoided
all of it.
You fought that. As long as you don't systematize and run it like a business, then you can pretend you're not running a business.
Yeah. I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
It felt like to actually think about business felt like the antithesis to us of like everything that we were shooting for.
Yeah.
I don't think that way anymore, but at the time we're in our 20s and know everything, and
yeah, you always do.
Yeah. And so it was just like, oh no, man, we're not the man.
Yeah.
We're like just a couple painters,
Yeah. Well, how did, was that a rough transition for you guys, having to, become the man, or having to figure out, okay, you actually are running a business?
No, it wasn't for me. I don't know if it was for you. It wasn't for me because we personally didn't change. It felt like we would before we started doing that, it felt like we would change, and I didn't want to become that.
That was your fear.
I didn't want to become that guy, whatever that guy was.
The stereotypical, not nice boss, maybe.
Yeah, it felt like, a sellout sort of thing. Like, oh, we don't want to sell out and just make this about the money.
Yeah.
So we're not about the money. We're about like, this communal and this relational part of it. And then you start to realize like, wait a minute, like we still don't really care about the money that much, but you start to realize this is going to be a lot easier on ourselves. And as you start a family and raising kids and everything else, it's like, it's going to make it a lot easier on ourselves if we actually take this seriously. And it does, it's like, it's not easy to run a business when you're trying not to be a business person.
Well, you know what? We were the masters of improvisation. We could improv anything at any time. We were really good at it. And, but the thing is that, that's all well and good for jazz or blues, but it sucks for running a business, And that's, I think I talked in the last time, we like nowadays, the number one thing for us is whenever we're trying to hone the business is like, how can we be more proactive? So before everything was improvisation, oh, you need this, you want that, and I mean, we were just like, and we could make it happen, but it was like a lot more effort, and we didn't realize like, yeah, we're actually shooting ourselves in the foot. It took a long time to see that. So
yeah, kids are pretty needy in terms of time. They want food, they want clothing. It's like, good God, what's going on?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm glad you guys have systematized things a little bit, and continually improve that. What's been challenging for you guys? Working as friends, growing this business together, deciding it is a business. Have you guys had run-ins? What has happened?
Yeah, I know you brought that up last time, and I don't know, Tony answered it about as well as I could. There, in 20 years of doing it, there hasn't been much. And we do get that question, there's a lot of people that I think that start a business together, and not too many of them do it for 20 years. Yep. And I think probably the biggest thing is neither one of us cares about the money that much. And I think that's probably what does in, 90% of these that start off as a partnership and then it falls apart. It's like 90% of the time that's got to be because of the money factor. There's some dispute about it. And, we've always been 50-50, and it's always, we've revamped some things over the years as to what does that look like? It's like, obviously we don't always work the same number of hours in a month. Obviously, we're doing different tasks. And so how do you kind of make it fair? Yeah. And that's the conversation that's come up a few times over the years, is just like, how do we make sure this is fair? But I think part of it is we equally value each other in terms of, I fully believe Tony's time and abilities are equal to mine. And I think he feels the same about me. So it's like, whether he's doing a task that, we'd have to pay somebody $200 an hour to do that sort of task, and I'm doing one where it's like filling nail holes, and we could probably find somebody for $15 to fill those nail holes, we're still just paying ourselves the same hourly rate. And for us, it came down to like, well, we pay ourselves hourly, because that way we know we're doing it about as fair as we can, and we value each other's time equally.
I would say too, there's a couple of things that came to mind. One, the idea of equity and fairness is like, we strive for that with each other, but at the same time, that's really probably not real high on the priority list in our partnership. There's times like, when we first had the business, I was still traveling 4+ months of the year, and Kent was not. That wasn't going on anymore, but we were paying ourselves the same. There came a point where Kent was like, we might need to rethink how we're doing some of this payment stuff because you're working a lot less than me. And I was like, yeah, fair enough, but then sure enough, it was like years later, there was a season where they were in Costa Rica for 5 months one year. The whole family, he took all 4 kids down, his wife, and they were down there for 5 months. And it was like, I had to pick up stuff, but I felt fine picking that up because we were in it together and we weren't shooting just for equity. The other thing too that comes to mind is like, maybe number one is like our friendship and cultivating that. And probably number 2, which is tied together with number 1, is just humor. Like, I can't, what was it? We heard years ago, the average person laughs like 7 times a day or something. We laugh like 7 times a minute. I'm not, it's like ridiculous. And so when something goes wrong, it's rare that we go to anger. It's almost always we go to self-deprecating humor,
Nice.
and we're
Yeah.
both really comfortable with doing that. And it just all becomes a part of the mythology that we have as a company of, we're telling stories, and it's like, oh, remember the time where, and it's like I underbid a job and we made $2 an hour or something, and we just laugh, where other people, I think, you go in there with the money mindset, it's easy to have that become a frustration. But
Sure.
we both know each other's intentions, and we both value each other over the business and over everything else. And we both love the humor that it provides. So we got a lot of good material, for funny stuff.
For your stand-up career.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I mean, that's a really valuable point. I think this idea that people take themselves and their businesses maybe a little too seriously at times. And if you can just learn to shake it off and laugh, even when something's can seem kind of negative, that it can make your whole business journey a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've definitely had mistakes. I talked about that lacquer mistake years ago that that was the biggest one. But we've had plenty others where it was distinctly one of our faults, really like a really poorly thought out bid, especially in the beginning when we didn't know what we were doing a whole lot with that, or like, getting the wrong color on a house and having to wire brush the whole thing. Or, I mean, there's been plenty of stuff that's come up that was distinctly one of our faults, but it's just like, we see it as fodder for humor and moving forward, as opposed to like, this guy's a problem or holding me back or whatever. We've each done it. So
yeah. How has it been with you guys growing your families while working together? Are your families involved in the business? How does that work?
My wife does the books.
Okay.
Kit's wife used to do the books. We fired her. No, I'm kidding.
God. She wasn't cutthroat enough for this business.
Right. No, she's a counselor now. When she went off to go to school, she dropped all of that, and my wife ended up doing it. Just the timing worked out for that. But otherwise, actually, we have had a few of our kids have actually painted a little bit with us, on and off. And it's like, oh, this is something they could do or whatever. But more so, we did. I mean, Kent lives like if I had the right size rock, I could probably hit his house with it from my porch. We live really close, and the kids have all grown up together. Kent has 4 girls, and I have twin girls and a son, and he's 2 of his kids are the same ages as the 3 of mine. So we do vacations together often. We were like in Kauai a couple years back, or maybe last year, I don't even remember. But we do stuff like that, a lot of that kind of stuff, and we do life together for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Kent, I would really love to hear more about what you do in Costa Rica. I know you're doing some good stuff down there.
Yeah, thanks for asking about that. And it is honestly, it's thanks to Tony that I'm able to pursue some of that stuff. Like you mentioned, it's been about 8 years ago. My family and I decided we wanted to give something else a try, and we went to Costa Rica, homeschooled the kids, and kind of tried out what it was like living in another country. And we did that in the off season, in the winter, but it was still, then Tony's doing his job and my job and running the company on his own for 5 months. And that was a gift that he gave to us, to be able to just try something totally different with our family. Again, the money for that didn't really come from the painting company. It came from, we have a house in Breckenridge that we were able to rent out for the ski season, and that afforded us the opportunity to go try that out. We, with our 4 kids, worked as volunteers at a little community resource center down there that works with an indigenous tribe. And this tribe has, been in the jungles of Costa Rica for 5,000 years. And now there's like a Western development kind of happening on the edges of their reserve. And there's a lot of 13,000 indigenous people kind of trying to figure out what that means and how to transition, if they want to transition into life in the Western world, education, speaking Spanish, which is not, their native language is Bree. And so we volunteered at this little community center, met a lot of those people. Our kids got involved, and we came back, and it was a crazy experience with our family doing that. And then we ended up going back the next year, and again the year after that. And about 6 years later, so now it's about 2 years ago, the people that ran that little nonprofit had kind of aged out of it. We're having some medical problems, and they couldn't do it anymore. And we watched as that place kind of started to falter and fail without them there. And it became clear that it was going to close doors. And it had been a place that had meant so much to our family, that had been such a cool thing to do together as a family, that we decided we just can't watch it close down and disappear. So we basically took over the operation of that, turned it into a 501c3 nonprofit, which it had never been an official nonprofit. And now we operate it, as executive directors. We hired an indigenous family that runs the day-to-day there, because we don't obviously live in Costa Rica. And now it's again kind of thanks to Tony and our business that we've built, that I still have the opportunity to be going there, go 3 to 4 times a year, kind of check up on things, meet with our board, make the big picture decisions, and just try and be supportive of this really cool place that we like. So it's called El Puente. It's in you can find it at elpuentethebridge.org. And I encourage listeners to check it out, just because, man, if you're looking for a cool place to travel, do a intercultural experience with your family or with your company or something, we take, there's volunteer opportunities, there's opportunities just to visit. One of the cool things is this is kind of a birthplace of cacao, which is like where we get chocolate from. So you go there and see the people that have been making chocolate for 5,000 years, and how it's part of their culture and tradition and heritage. And so there's some cool stuff there. I'd encourage listeners to check it out and potentially visit. I mean, Costa Rica on the coast, Caribbean coast, is not a bad place to visit. And if you want to make kind of giving back in some way part of your trip, then it's a neat opportunity.
What's something that Kent didn't say that I really love about it is so much of what it does is give opportunities for empowerment and choice to the people that it serves. So it's like, it's not coming and imposing any Western stuff there on the Bree people. It just gives a focal point of empowerment, and that can look all sorts of ways, from like, it provides, a means to school for like 150, 200 kids, I think. And of course they could do whatever they choose with that, but it provides a means for them to get to school and have the supplies and all that they need. And it provides like training for guys who know how to build. A lot of these guys are so ingenuitive and know how to build and do all sorts of stuff that is pertinent to that area. But it gives them a credibility to take these different classes or go these different things, that then they have choices to do what they want. And it also is like a real place of cultural pride. Like, they are always having these celebrations of their culture there at El Puente. And the common kind of thing when cultures clash is that the smaller culture usually is just kind of belittled and loses itself. And this is like really it's really done something to do the opposite for folks, to give them a sense of empowerment, a sense of they can choose to do all sorts of things and still be who and what they are as they are. So it's pretty cool.
Man, this is really cool. So people can visit El Puente the Bridge, ELPUENTE, thebridge.org. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's
okay. Perfect. So yeah, Ken, I might end up taking you up on that. So I lived in Costa Rica for almost 2 years, and I've been wanting to take my family there. And this sounds pretty perfect. So you and I I think we're going to connect about this.
Cool. Yeah, and then just in terms of how it all relates to painting, because that's a podcast, I would just say this is the sort, I mean, this is part of the reason that Tony and I got into this business. It just affords the opportunity to do another stuff. It's like, painting is kind of seasonal. So we have that off season, and, Tony spent a lot of it traveling. We spent a lot of it traveling, pursuing other things. Part of the beauty of doing this business together is it gives me the opportunity to do something totally outside of painting, something that's, no financial reward in it for me, but it's something that I just get a lot of enjoyment out of doing. And, you didn't talk about it at all last time, but Tony's got, I mean, so many pursuits also in his own life outside of painting. It's like we're painting so that we can be doing these other things. Tony's writing novels and short stories and going to writers conferences. And so, we both have these things that are going on. That's like, hey, the painting is a means to something, beyond financial. It's a means to, again, like, relationship between us, and a means to pursuing the sort of stuff we really find value in our lives.
I think it's funny too, like so many people who are in the contracting world, when you talk to them, it just sounds like, they're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. They're just going. And like, we got into it with a very different mindset. It was like, oh, well, if we don't have a boss, then we can do what we want to do and pursue what we want to pursue. And so that's been there from the start, is just like, what are other things that are important to us? This doesn't have to just be the thing. So I still, even when I listen to a lot of the podcasts on your podcast, that's something I feel is a little different for us. Like, a lot of folks are really interested in growth, and which is all fine. That's like another pursuit and passion for some people. But for us, it was like, well, we wanted to have lots of free time. And we wanted to have lots of freedom to just take off whenever we could, and maybe do some other endeavors and all that kind of stuff. So.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, some people are really pursuing it with an extremely aggressive growth mindset and trying to create almost an empire. And then other people, which is kind of the approach it seems like you guys are taking, is really more of a lifestyle business, provide value to your community and ultimately use the business to be able to live a life that you otherwise wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the only conflict that I see is when it's people that are kind of pursuing that business growth, financial growth, in the mindset that, like, well, once I hit this point, then I'll be able to, like, kind of step back and really pursue what I want to do. Once I'm making this much a year, once my business crosses that threshold, that's when I can really, like, kind of take it easy. And that's one that I think is a false assumption. We started it kind of from the beginning, going, hey, this complements stuff that we want to do, and we're not going to sacrifice the, being with our families, traveling, being together, and put that off towards, like, some kind of retirement date, like, or some kind of, like, once we hit 5 million a year date. It's like, no, if you're not doing that now, if you're not doing the things that you want to do that bring you life, that give you an enjoyment now, then you're missing it. That's don't put that off till, like, oh, maybe in 5 years I'll be there. It's like,
sure.
No, if you're not doing it now, you're never going to be doing it, or you're going to get there and it's like, now you don't have any energy left to enjoy it. So we kind of tried to integrate that the whole way.
You think it's kind of like almost like an oasis or something? It's never really going to materialize the way people think it will.
Definitely.
Yeah, what the philosophers call it object A, right? You're just always
you're
always chasing the object.
They call it what?
Object A. It's like a
object A.
Tony reads and listens to too much philosophy, and, but
what is object A?
That's the thing that you never have, that is just there.
That's the perfect house. That's the perfect life. That's what object A is.
And it's the win. Win this, win that. Then when I have this or whatever, when things are like that, that's when I'll. And it's like, you want to be who you are at the deepest and fullest, right where you are when you are. and not have something often. I mean, that's aside from goals.
This is the sort of thing we hash through when we're
I usually do this. I'm like,
when
what do you think about object A? And I
Yeah.
got my hand swinging around with a paintbrush.
Yeah. This is the sort of thing we spent 20 years, on the side of a house painting and hashing through, like, what is the meaning of life and what are we doing here together, So,
Yeah. Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Tony, you're writing books?
Well, yeah,
Got novels and short stories and all this going on?
well, I mean, they are words there. Whether they qualify as novels is yet to be.
Can we see them or any published?
No, I haven't published. I'm right at the front end of the first two maybe getting published here. So, yeah.
Nice, man. Well, congratulations. That's amazing.
I mean, honestly, that's just an endeavor for myself. Like, it's more of like a cathartic, thing. It's just like something nice to do and reflect. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, there's words.
There are words. Yeah.
No, there's some good stuff. I'm sitting here as we sat down to do this podcast. We're at Tony's desk, and I'm looking at his massive wall of books, and the guy's just the amount of books and novels, histories, and everything that Tony goes through is just pretty incredible. And then has turned that around and put it into his own writing. And I mean, there's poetry, there's all kinds of stuff, and that's another aspect of our friendship is he'll send me those things and look for feedback and editing and that sort of stuff. So
yeah, so if you're looking for an editor, this is the guy.
Yeah, Kent's the guy.
Yeah.
Amazing. So this is probably a pretty dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyways, in case anyone's wondering it. Is there a plan for old world painting moving forward, or is the plan to keep doing what you're doing and no real set concrete plan?
We don't have we've never sat down and said in 3 years and 5 years, that kind of plan.
Mhm.
As we're doing things now, the main plan has been, what can we do to make everything more proactive? And what can we do to expand like the endeavors that we have within painting and without? We have looked at, we've done a lot of organizational things with the company with the idea that, well, there could be a time in the future when we sell it, but we don't have any timeline for that. And honestly, with the way it is right now, how much we'd want to do that, I don't know. It's a pretty smooth running machine. So as long as we stay proactive, there's really very few problems or anything. So it just feels like kind of this one part of life that's not like all consuming or anything. But we definitely, 6 years ago, we sat down and like, okay, what would make this thing sellable if we wanted to have like that? My father-in-law always asked, well, what's your exit strategy? He's a real business guy.
Yeah.
Which terrified him when he first met me. But he's all about it now. But he was like, he always still asks me, like, what's your exit strategy? So we try and have that, but we don't have a timeline or a plan. That's just if that comes up and sounds good.
I think that's always in the back of our minds, is like, are we structuring this thing and are we managing it to the degree that if we were to want to turn it over someday, it would be an easy process. So that's everything from like really meticulous record keeping on products and colors and clients and contacts, to like kind of thinking through like what's our employment structure and how is that transferable. So that's in the back of our minds. It's not something we regularly talk about, but I think I also wanted to touch on, Tony mentioned it earlier, but he said something, never wanted to be working like 50, 60 hours a week sort of guys. But the reality is, we were at various times.
Yeah.
And again, anybody that's started a business and done it knows it's like, man, you don't always just get to set your hours and say, oh, I want to work 35 hours a week.
From day one.
Oh my gosh,
the money's there.
We've over 20 years, we've gone through periods where it's like, we are busting out 50 or 60 hour weeks. And even Tony was even fairly recently before we changed some structure
in the summer.
In the summer times. And it's like, that wasn't necessarily what we wanted to be doing. And it was like, we were just trying to kind of hang on and still sort things out. And that's been a long process, and a lot of learning curve and a lot of failure on like trying to figure that out and getting it wrong a lot of times.
Sure.
And so, yeah, it definitely has taken, we always have prioritized stuff probably outside of painting, but we've also always kind of recognized that like, hey, this is putting the food on our table. And when push comes to shove, like maybe we got to work till 11 p.m. tonight and we got to call the wives and say, we're stuck on this job. We got to fix this. We got to get it right. And we can't leave until we do. So
more often than not, even when those times have come, because they've ebbed and flowed, it's been a while now, but neither Kent nor I, this is just how it, I don't know, that neither of us needs much sleep. And so like,
that's always helpful as an entrepreneur to not need much sleep.
So, but it was like, it was easy in those stretches. It rarely felt like much of a chore to like get up at 5 a.m. or whatever, write up some bids, go do a 6-hour workday, 7-hour workday, come home, hang out, go for a hike, maybe go to skiing during the day, whatever, hang out with the family, then go to get the kids to bed, and then hang out with my wife or whatever. And then at 10:30 or 11, then do another 2 hours of quotes or whatever needed to be done. That never felt like a
Oh, you just made me tired just hearing all that.
But it didn't feel tired, because I was doing so many of the things that I loved in between. It was like there would be 3 hours of skiing in between, or whatever, where we live, it's like I can walk out my back door and I can go on countless hikes. I can be 15 minutes at the ski area. So like it was never 9 to 5. So even those times where it came up, it was like, oh, something's going on because I'm having to work like 11 hours, but it was like, it was split up. It just didn't feel that way. And even if I weren't doing that, I was still only sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night anyway. So it's like, if I weren't doing that, I'd be up writing or whatever.
Yeah.
So it was like it would come and go like that.
Well, I'm glad that you guys brought that up, because I think one of the things that I want to make sure doesn't happen with our podcast episodes, because different people are at different stages of their business, when they're listening, and things are not always positive, for people growing a business. And the way you guys kind of portray it sometimes seems like, oh man, this is easy. You can just do it. So I think, but you've acknowledged that sometimes you had to do things you didn't want to do, and you had to work longer than you had to. And that's the nature of the beast. But at the same time, you guys maintained your perspective. You maintained why you're doing it. And you never said, well, I'm just going to sacrifice the next 3 years or 5 years. I'm not going to see my kids and I'm going to hate my life. But then object A is going to be there waiting for me. You guys never made that choice.
Right.
That's true. Yeah. And I can't overestimate the value of having a partner in this. Things do go wrong. I mean, we've had major disasters, and like Tony said, sometimes it's completely his fault or my fault. We had one a few years ago.
Usually Tony's, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, almost always. No, we had one a few years ago where like I picked a product to put on a house and it was the wrong product. It didn't adhere right. It completely failed. We had to chemically strip an entire exterior, probably 5,000 square foot house. And it was like a nightmare,
disaster.
I mean, a loss of probably close to $10,000. It's like that sort of stuff happens. And it's like, but the value of having somebody
to share it with,
to just call and go, oh man, did I screw this up? We are in trouble now. It's like, and it feels awful, but just to have somebody that's like in it with you, that's like, yep. And then, you can face it together is incredibly valuable. And, even if you don't have a business partner, it's like to have there's plenty of other contractors out there. There's a lot of times a group of contractors, Tony and I are part of one up here where it's like, hey, whether it's like a plumber and an electrician and a realtor getting together and just sharing that, here's what's going on in my business and here's what I'm facing, and having a group of people in your community that you can bounce that stuff off of is really valuable. For us, it's great because it's like we're doing it together, every day. But if it's people you can meet with once a week in the business community, you start to hear those stories and it starts to feel like, wow, I'm not the only one that's like up against this. It feels like overwhelming. There's other people out there struggling for it and trying to figure out how to make it work.
I feel like, I feel too, like, I mean, I can't say how often we hear people or we have people say something like, I can't believe you guys are business, like, I can't believe you're business partners or you have done it this long. I don't know how you could do it with a business partner, but I'm always thinking like, I don't know how anybody could do it without somebody.
Yeah.
And that's coming from, like I'm a person who does I will do a lot of stuff very independently in life. I've gone on, backpacking trips where I'm like 3 weeks without seeing another person and that kind of stuff. And I'm, what I mean? Like I'll do that kind of thing or whatever. But the idea of doing a business on your own, it just feels exhausting to me. Who do I get to laugh with when I mess it up? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That power of community, man. That's such an important point. I'm glad you guys acknowledged. Doesn't mean you have to have a business partner, but if you're out there on your own and join a group, find a group of other entrepreneurs, business owners, contractor group, join the PCA, get in the Facebook groups, because you're not kind of in the heat of the battle or whatever stage of your business you're at. You're not the only one there, and there are other people you can talk with and empathize with, and it's important. We're a social species.
Yeah.
That's super valuable, guys. So I want to go back to this point of kind of making the company sellable, because I know that's a big thing for painting companies. It's a big kind of pain point in the industry right now. This idea that painting companies are not sellable. Seems like you guys have given a lot of thought to that. And I know, Kent, you talked about meticulous record keeping, customer list, products, et cetera, having your sounded like your standard operating procedures, your SOPs really dialed in. What else are you guys really doing to try to give yourself, even if you haven't specifically planned an exit strategy, at least give yourself the option of having a viable exit strategy?
I've got something.
Yeah, you go ahead. I got a couple too.
The first couple things that come to mind are we have a proactive, I think I talked about this a little bit the last time, but we have a proactive, proactive maintenance plan with our customers. And I feel like in terms of a selling point, this one's huge, because most people I talk to, they're like, oh yeah, if I sell the business, I got this phone here and it's got 400 clients in it, and they're thinking like the client list is the thing. But really a client list, it's all well and good, but what you want to be able to sell is the relationship to the client, not just their phone number, or email or whatever. And so we've created this like thing where we're in contact with the client. We don't do, I think I said, we don't do like a monthly stuff, because I don't feel like that's actually communication. That's just like sticking in somebody's faces and trying to be in front of them, which is fine. But we do stuff that's actually, we try and be like communicative. Like I will contact people about the specific needs that their home may need. And I've got it all systematic. And so, our client list is 700 some people now. And a selling point is that, hey, I've got a system in place that actually brings you, as things stand now, it probably brings $1.5 million a year, just guaranteed. All you do is implement this system. It's not like, you've got a flyer going out monthly. No, you've got specific things for specific houses. It's all systematic. It takes almost none of your time. But
and what is that? What is that proactive plan?
Well, it's just like knowing what maintenance needs are up here, which is a little more a lot more frequent than most places, because, we've got homes at 11,000 feet in elevation here. And the lowest home in our county is probably 8,700 feet. So we get serious UV stuff. And then, the weather here, the freeze and thaw cycle it just wreaks havoc on stuff. So there's a lot of maintenance to do. And then since things are stained mostly and not painted, You've got like the semi-transparent and transparent stains. If you let those go up here, it's a real work to get them back to where they look right. And you can only do that a couple times because you're really rough on the wood when you're doing it, you know? So we try and be in front of all that. So when I finish a house, let's say we finish a house, I've got spreadsheets lined out for years in the future. And it's like, okay, this house has these details. There's smooth wooden railings that are sun exposed, you know, and a deck that's sun exposed. So I put that 2 years from now, or at that moment, I put it in the spreadsheet for 2 years from now. And then I contact that client 2 years later with a form letter that I've written, you know, that just says, hey, we did your railings 2 years ago. And, you know, experience tells us I should come look at them. I don't know if they'll need done. I'll just give you an honest opinion about it. And it comes with no pressure. And, you know, it sounds way better than that. But what I send them, you know, but no, it's like, I'll send that out to, depending, you know, there's probably 100 to 200 clients every year that get some letter of that sort that is personalized to their specific home and the details there. They know I'm thinking about it. I'm watching out for their home. Of those 100 to 200 people, 80% get back to me and say, take a look, you know, and of that 80%, I do it proactively. So it's like of that 80%, you know, it's more like 30% that actually have recommended work, 30 to 40% of that 80. And then maybe one person out of that 30 or 40% says, I don't want to do it this year. The rest are like, we really appreciate you caring for our home. You know,
you almost have this basically guaranteed repeat work.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. It's like you can give somebody a client list, but it's just not the same as giving them this program. So it guarantees like $1.5 million gross a year. So the only way it's not going to happen is if you don't do it, you know. So that's one thing that we've set up to try and like make the business more sellable, is just like,
that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, you said, you know, a lot of people feel like a painting business isn't really sellable. And I think totally it is. And mainly because, wow, if you've painted somebody's house, it's going to need painted again. You know, it's going to need painted again. And
yeah, it's one of the beautiful things about painting, like, right?
Of course, you know that. So that Tony's right. It's about building that relationship and following up with those clients that you've already worked for. And you know, not waiting for them to, you know, 5 years later forget who painted the house the last time and Google painters, but you know, for you to be the one sending them an email and saying like, hey, we did your house 5 years ago. Maybe I should come by, take a walk around and let you know what it needs. You know, as we all know, most homeowners are way late in the game when they realize, oh, my house might need painted this year. It's like, well, it probably did. If you notice it now, for most homeowners, it probably needed it 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So we're the ones that are the professionals. We're the ones that know what needs attention, what doesn't. And man, the clients love it too when they get an email from Tony that says, hey, good news, your house doesn't need any work this year. We'll evaluate it again next year and see how the decks are looking.
Yeah, or I'll say like next year or 3 years from now, I'll let them know, educated guess. It's funny, I'll get emails back from clients when I say that just say, Tony, you're the man.
Yeah.
You know, or because I'm like not selling anything.
Tony, you officially became the man.
Yeah.
The guy you didn't want to be.
All right, there it is. There it is.
It all comes full circle. Yeah.
So no, and we actually, I mean, we haven't sold our painting company, but we did years ago buy a painting company, and it was based in you know, Pitkin County, which is Aspen area, you know, real high end homes over there. We actually bought a painting company that had done a lot of commercial work, and that worked out for about 3 years. And it was too much of a commute to be over there, but that was something that the guy I bought that company from had done pretty well. He had kept records of the places he had done, and he had recurring contracts to paint, you know, the same building every 7 years. And it was like, that's an easy purchase for me, because I know like, hey, he can show it to me on paper. He did this building 14 years ago. He did it 7 years ago, and now it's coming up again this year. And he had a list of, you know, dozens of complexes like that. And so for me, I was able to buy in, take those records and
Paid for itself immediately.
Yeah, it paid for itself right away, and we ran that for several years before it was like we just can't, it's a 2.5 hour drive that we didn't want to keep trying to do. So, but yeah, it gave me some insight onto, okay, if I wanted to sell my company, this is part of what we would need to do is dial in, like, here's the people we work for, and here's when we painted their house, what we used on it, and what's going to need attention 2 years from now.
Another thing that we keep trying to do is whatever that Kent is doing or I'm doing, we just keep trying to get rid of it, like to pass it on to somebody else. So like I mentioned, we hired a good buddy to do quotes last year and to do quality control. And it's like, it's funny as a business owner, I don't know if I ever consciously thought that, but I think I thought, for the longest time, well, nobody could do quotes but me. And Kent, like, we know what we're doing. Nobody could do it. But then I created this system. I was like, well, what am I doing actually? And I created a system for quoting. And then we hired our buddy, and I was like, I really don't know if this is a system. And I handed it off to him, and within 2 weeks, he was bidding within 1% of me every single time. I was like, oh, this is a system, And once we saw that, we hired him last May, and by the end of the season, I was like, I'm not doing any bids. I'm just, Dustin can take care of all of them. And then, it's like the only time I do something like that now is like Dustin's out. Again, we're trying to forward this kind of stuff with anybody that's with us, but Dustin's out on a hut trip in Europe right now skiing. And so I'm doing some bids, because he's gone.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But we just try and farm out what we could do. I have contractual stuff I do with employees that I keep hounding my wife to do, that I want, pass those to her, mainly because if I'm not doing it, then that means the business isn't me,
Sure.
Yeah. And so anything that we could do in the end to make, the one thing that we can't farm out is our personalities, which we are charming, let me tell you.
Charming and always humble.
Yeah, it goes a long way though with clients that, we can't farm that out, but anything else that we can, we really need to figure out ways to do that.
Right.
So then it's just like a handoff to somebody too.
Yeah, because otherwise you to be able to sell it, you have to be able to not be in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone else has to be able to pick it up and run it.
Yeah.
And I think that was a tough thing to get past, is that whole mentality that I'm the only one that could do this. I'm the only one that could quote a job. I'm the only one that could possibly
spray lacquer.
Yeah, spray lacquer or figure out, which stain to use on this house, or there's a million things that you just feel like, oh, there's no way I could train somebody to do this.
Right.
So it's kind of trying to get past that mentality.
And it's hard. You're right. It's hard, especially for, when you've built the business and you've done it a certain way, even if it is a somewhat commonly known skill, let's say, some sort of painting method of painting, you still feel like, well, this is how we do it here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, and there's like, it's funny, that kind of mentality just follows you, because at first we were just slinging brushes, and it was like, I couldn't possibly have somebody lacquer. That was like such a sensitive thing. You wanted it perfect, etc. I couldn't let somebody, then it was like you pass that off, and then there's some other thing. There's like, I couldn't possibly
the same cycle.
And now neither of us are really painting. We're like running things, but then you sit there, I couldn't possibly let somebody bid.
No one else could ever run things though.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And it just like keeps going, and you're like, now we're to the point where we're like, we are completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Well, how can we get rid of ourselves?
What a beautiful thing, man. What a beautiful realization that you guys are building something that can run without you.
Yeah.
Ideally,
yes.
Yeah. Well, in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will return to, like, it definitely,
fits and starts.
It definitely took 20 years to get there, and there was a lot of period in between where it was like we're just hanging on,
Yeah.
Well, guys, this has been incredible. Kent, I thank you for coming on. Tony, thank you for coming on again. You guys have anything before we wrap up, anything else that you want to say, advice you want to give, stories you want to tell, anything else?
Gotta be some good story.
Oh man, there's a million stories.
I opened the door.
Yeah.
So no, I think, and we've said it all along, but the beauty of having a painting company, and maybe it's any business, but we just know painting, is the fact that it affords you the opportunity to live your life the way you want to live it. And whether that's, traveling the world or running a nonprofit or writing a novel or whatever, it's like, that's what it's done for us. And that's the beautiful thing about the business we're in. So,
yeah. And if those are if you have those kind of endeavors that you want to pursue, do them from day one, literally sacrifice. You can let the business get hurt by it. It's fine, because if you do it the other way around, it's probably always going to be off in the distance, that thing that you're wanting. So it's like, make sure you're choosing your big priorities first, and let the business kind of follow that,
and keep laughing about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's our painting life philosophy. There you go.
There it is. Guys, thank you for this. This was amazing. This was insightful. And I'm going to remember to laugh way more than 7 times per day.
All right.
Gotta laugh more than 7 times per day. I'm not sure I'm going to match you guys at 7 a minute, but we'll see if I can get somewhere in between there.
Chase the rainbow,
Yeah. That would be my object day. In a year, I'll laugh 7 times a minute.
All right.
Love it.
See you guys.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
If you want to learn more about the topics we discussed in this podcast and how you can use them to grow your painting business, visit paintermarketingpros.com/podcast for free training, as well as the ability to schedule a personalized strategy session for your painting company. Again, that URL is paintermarketingpros.com/podcast. Hey there, painting company owners. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give us your feedback. Let us know how we did. And also, if you're interested in taking your painting business to the next level, make sure you visit the Painter Marketing Pros website at paintermarketingpros.com to learn more about our services. You can also reach out to me directly by emailing me at brandon@paintermarketingpros.com, and I can give you personalized advice on growing your painting business. Until next time, keep growing.